Hi, George. How are you?
Rich. How's it going?
Good, good.
I can't imagine how hot it is over there.
Just ask her. Wait. Guess the number. What do you think it is? How hot? Where she is?
113.
Oh, you're
110.
110. You're close.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's like you walk outside, it's like instant fire.
Every time it gets super hot, I think about my high school buddy who moved over there. I'm like, oh my gosh.
And you didn't tell that part, right?
They knew. That's why they made sure they had AC.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with George because I know he's got some great news, and then I have something I want to share too. But yeah, let's hear all about your stuff.
Yes. So this past weekend, actually yesterday, um, I had a prospective buyer turn into both the sell and the buy. So that was exciting because it's my first listing.
Woo.
Um, so it'll be a mobile home coming up in Watsonville.
Nice.
Perfect.
And you're first working with a sell by.
Mm-hmm.
So perfect because this is my first
That
listing.
that dovetails also with what you want to talk about today too, Michelle.
Yeah, I got a
Selling with
listing. I got to help find them.
contingency to purchase
Yep,
something else.
new
Yeah.
territory.
You were going to say something though prior to me saying that. What was that, Michelle?
Oh, no, just same thing, got a listing and they want me to help them find their house.
Nice.
So,
So,
so Michelle currently has a mobile home, which is awesome.
yes.
And she is just realizing the time it takes to sell a mobile home. Sometimes it takes
Well,
a
it's
minute.
yeah, and I think more so because it's in a senior community. I feel
Mm.
like, I mean, I'm sure mobile homes period can take a long time, but that 55 plus, I feel like it just really narrows it down
It
because
does. Yeah,
you're
it's
you're you're dealing with people who live on have a limited income.
yep.
Mm.
So, and then when there's restrictions in the park, they don't allow children to live there. It's, the first person has to be 55, but the second person can be 45. And the
Mm,
next person can be 45. So that's a little bit more lenient than what I've heard before in the past, but still.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty typical for
That
the
makes sense.
what about so George, tell me about the one that you have coming up in Watsonville. Which community is it going to be at?
So it's gonna be in the off of Green Valley, so at the Green Valley Mobile Home Estates. It's a 2 bedroom, 2 bath. Um, and actually when we did our quick analysis, we're gonna be probably the cheapest one to hit the market
Ooh,
currently.
that's motivation to move, to sell.
Yeah, they actually have decent space rent, and um, they've done a lot of updates to it. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. It's an older mobile. It's a 74.
Okay.
So I have to make sure I have lenders lined up for that.
Hmm.
But other than that, I mean, the home, you look at it, it looks like it's a regular home.
Nice. Wow, that's
Now,
great.
what I've learned, and I'm double check on your end, George, is that yeah, my clients have great space rent too. But when the new person comes in, it went from 800 to 1100 a month for the new person to come in
Why did it reassess so high?
because they've been there for a long time and that's the going rate around, so they're catching up to be around the same zone. So I didn't know that. And also, definitely talk with you're going to be talking a lot with a mobile home person there,
Mhm.
who's the manager, because they're going to be telling you, make sure you tell your whoever they need to apply first, or whatever their rules are, so that you make it sure, they apply when you get an offer. So that another thing, an interesting thing that I learned, because when you have to input the information about the when you talk to title, I guess I'm thinking, it's been a while now since I've gotten written this up. They asked me if there was an L or a certain number in front of the model number or the serial number, because that if the decal starts with an L, then you mark the tax roll box is marked.
Hmm.
I don't know.
That's great feedback.
Good to know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually found out a fun fact. I haven't verified yet, but I will share because it'll probably apply to everyone's
Mhm.
county.
Let's hear it.
I heard that the reason my buyers started looking in the first place, and actually mobiles in Watsonville have started to go up for sale, is Harmony, I believe, is the company who is starting to take over as a management company or ownership. Haven't verified it yet. And they themselves are using their in-house realtors to offer cash offers to longtime owners. And so a lot of them are just because they're going to increase the space rent. When people say, hey, wait, what's going on with the space rent?
Hmm,
They're like, well, we can offer you so much.
interesting.
And so that's a strategy that I was going to look into. I was like, that's interesting.
Hmm.
That
Because I
is
noticed
interesting.
two agents listing a lot of mobile homes in the Tri-County.
Are they all with that Harmony or, oh, they are interesting. You know what you might want to check into EXP's express offers and see if you can do an express offer to a homeowner prior to it getting on the market, prior to you listing it, because those are the same as cash. So you might be able to do that. And when you do that, when you work with express offers with EXP, you go through the program, they talk to the seller, they do the intake sheet on the seller, they do the property inspection, they get it priced, and then they say, okay, this is what we're willing to offer on this particular property, and the sellers either take it or leave it. If the sellers take it, then they get their money right then and there cash. They can move on and you can help them buy something else, etc. But they have to be ready to go, right? So when the deal is that if it needs to be, especially if it needs to be remodeled somewhat to a lot, then express offers, they work with you to get that repaired. And once it's repaired, you list it and then you sell it. And if there's a difference from what it sells for compared to what the seller purchased, then there's an amount that goes back to the seller off of that purchase price. So it's kind of a cool deal, but check into it. Because I don't know if it pertains to modular homes, mobile homes, or anything like that. That's something to look into.
Yeah, I'll definitely look into that.
And they're going to buy a condo, a single family? What are they going to buy after that? After
Single family.
single family. Okay.
What?
Okay. Single family home.
Okay.
So that kind of dovetails well with what Michelle wanted to talk about too, which, well, she brought it up. I thought it was such a great idea, is let's talk about representing a seller, selling that property, and then representing them on the buy side. And what does that look like? That looks like you have to have that document in place that saves them. They're going to have seller replacement property. There's a seller replacement property form. And actually I wanted to share my screen and let me pull it up first because I wanted to show you what that looks like. Let me find it first. Oh, I think it's over here.
So you can basically get the listing signed, and you can be looking for property once they're approved to know what they can buy if they're not going to get enough money from their sale, because they may need to get a loan. But once you go to write an offer, you're going to add to the offer. I'm assuming I'm the contingent on them selling their property. Is there's, I'll let you go over that, but my question is like, you have to write so many days, and how do you know what days to write?
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I get what Michelle's saying. The balance, right, between like getting it sold and entering into the other one.
Yeah, because you have to balance that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I gotta find it in here. So we are representing the seller and where'd that SPP?
Buyers at the bottom, let's see.
I think this is mobile.
Seller's purchase of replacement property, the SR, right there.
Yeah, this one right here. So this is the SPRP form, seller's purchase of replacement property. And so when you're representing the seller, you are going to make sure you fill this out because you're saying that your seller is purchasing a property, right? And it's finding a replacement property. You're going to give this to whatever buyer comes in and offers on your property, your seller's property, because this lets them know we're selling our house, but we got to find one first. If we can't find one, then we can't sell our house. And this lets everyone know crystal clear that that is the situation. If this form is not there, then the seller might have to be forced to selling the property without finding a replacement property if this form is not involved. So it's super important.
So at what point does this form get involved?
Well, you want
have
to
it-
have it as soon as possible. You want to have it as part of the disclosures. So that way, when you have your listing, you're letting any buyer know that it's going to be, it's a sale contingent on them finding another property. Now you can give it to, you can, of course, you can have it blank, right? With not any buyer, but you would have the seller's name here. You would say it now, if the seller's in contract and they find another property, you can also say, look, we're already in escrow. Here's the escrow number. Here's the title company. This is proof that we found another property. That's good. Also, if you, well, that same information is on the other form, contingent property form, but this form here, parties agree that the seller may extend the close of escrow for the sale of seller's property for a maximum of X days or until blank date. Buyer with written notice at the time seller removes find replacement property contingency specified in 1A above. Finding replacement property. The agreement is contingent on the seller entering into a contract to acquire replacement property or identify suitable property to move to. That's, this even works if they are doing 1031 exchange, even though 1031 exchange kind of, that defeats the purpose of this form. But if you wanted to, you could say the same thing. We plan on doing 1031 exchange. But you can also say you have to have identified a property with a certain amount of time. It's 180 days for a 1031 exchange. But if you wanted to find that replacement property, but let the buyer know, this is what you would say here. You would use this form. And then usually close of escrow. So parties agree that the seller could extend the close of escrow of the sale property for a maximum of a number of days or a date. They can cancel the replacement of property if they want to. If it's not even a thing anymore, they can do that. The seller has a right to cancel. The buyer has a right to cancel. Always, each party has a right to cancel. But yeah, you would do this right away. You want to let people know. Even in the seller, in the MLS remarks, the confidential remarks, you would let them know seller to find replacement property. You want the agents to know that. You don't want to let the public know that. You put that in private remarks. But if you wanted to,
So when you send the, all I did was get a listing signed and they, like a few months ago, and now they put it off to January of next year.
oh wow.
But now they called me the other day and said they paid all their bills off. And so they're speaking with the lender, the beginning of August to see what they can qualify for. And I have not sent disclosures or anything because they're still unsure. You know, we just signed the listing, but they're still
I
kind
wouldn't
of.
do any disclosures until it gets closer. You don't want to do that yet. Not, yeah, especially if you're not.
Especially this one. When I do the disclosures, I'll add this in and
Yeah.
go over it with them. Okay.
Yeah, you'll add the other one in. Now, when they put an offer on a property, this is the form that they're going to use when you put an offer on the property. So in Georgia's situation, for listing the mobile home, you're going to use the other form. For when they purchase another home, if they are in escrow or while they're looking, and they find something that they want to buy, then this is the form that they're going to use, contingency for sale of buyer's property. Because they're the buyer on the next property, right? So on this form here, you want to make sure, so this form here ties to the RPA. And on the RPA, there's one little box that says if it's contingent, and if it is, this form should automatically populate into the whole stream of your documents. But if it doesn't, then you make sure that you pull this form because it's what you need in that situation. And so on this one here, it gives you different options in case you're already in escrow. If you are, then you would mark this buyer's property contingency, its agreement upon the buyer entering into contract for the sale of and closing escrow on the buyer's property. So the buyer's property in George's situation here would be escrow number, whatever it is, and whomever he has escrow with. And let's say it's already in contract, whatever that close date is, you would put that there as an example. And then it says here, evidence is attached to this COP form. So evidence is maybe an estimated seller's statement. That's something, the net sheet you can give as proof if they don't believe you, but usually they're fine with just the forms. But you can add that as an example. Or buyer entering into contract for sale of buyer's property. So if 1A applies, meaning buyers entering into a contract for the sale of and closing escrow on buyer's property, then buyer shall have 17 days after acceptance to enter into contract for the sale of buyer's property. So what that is saying is you don't have the mobile home in contract yet, George, but your buyers found a home that they like and they want to offer on. They can do that. They can mark on the RPA. You would mark on the RPA for them, COP, this form here, COP, contingency for sale buyer's property. And then this one here would say they have 17 days to get their mobile into contract.
Putting on
Or,
and selling it.
right.
Okay.
Or
And-
X amount of days. Okay.
And this is in the situation that the lender requires the sale for the qualification on the new home.
Okay. So
Right.
then for that one, you would do time 2A within 2A, or after buying enter contract for the sale buyer's property, buyers shall deliver escrow evidence. This one, I would probably just mark, well, however long, so you know that whatever contingency you put in there, time frame to close 30-day, 45-day, plus I would add whatever 30 or 45 days plus the 17 is what I would do. And that would be the number of days I would put in there. That
Yeah.
means I would have that much time to sell the mobile home, get it, and then have that money available and padding in time to close on that next mobile home.
Is there a max number you can't go more than, or,
I've not heard of a max number,
okay. So you can,
but be realistic.
90 days,
Be realistic. If you're representing the property that George's clients want to purchase, what are your sellers' situation? What's their conditions? What do they need? Where do they need to go? Do they need to sell it fast? If they do, this probably won't work. They probably won't want to look at any buyers with anything to, contingent to sell. If it's a overpriced listing that's been sitting and they're stuck on their price, then maybe it would work 90 days. But who's going to want a long escrow? Nobody wants a long escrow. Too many things can go wrong and sideways in long escrows, and then time, money, and you know, frustration gets piled into the whole recipe of it all. So you need to be careful about that timing. I feel like 30 days, if you are just putting that mobile home on the market and then they happen to find one this weekend, you're going to want to put at least 30 days, 45 days. I would do 50 days on there just to say, hey, we just put it on the market. I don't know what the mobile home market's like. It might go fast, it might not. And if it doesn't, I have a little room in there to pad for my clients, assuming your client seller is willing to agree to that. They may just say, no, you have 17 days, and then you give it your best shot with 17 days and try and get that mobile home sold.
Wow.
Mhm.
If they're willing to work with you, obviously you can do an extension, right?
Sure. Oh, yes,
But
always.
I feel like that's the end, that's it. If they're open and willing.
Right, right. And then let's say you showed the clients this weekend property and they don't even have their house listed. Well, then number 3 would apply in that situation. The buyer has signed a listing agreement and it will go on the market, in 3 days or 10 days. And it will be with, my company, eXp Realty, etc. Then you can put that information in here. And then, you know, then there's the whole backup offer situation, which means this. So let's say the seller agrees to George's clients selling the mobile home. They're gonna, we're giving them 17 days to try and get it sold. But during that 17 days, I, as a seller, have the right to take backup offers on my property. In fact, the property is only marked active contingent in the MLS. And when a property is active contingent, it is still marketable. Any agent can offer up an offer to another listing agent for their client saying, hey, I have a client interested in your house. And then what the seller can do at that point, because the agent has a responsibility to convey that offer to the seller, what the seller can do is decide, wow, this offer is way better than the one I'm in contract with. So I am going to give basically the first right of refusal to the current buyer. Hey, current buyer that I'm in contract with, are you willing and able to come up to these terms? Because I just received an offer like this. You have to give them the shot. And if they can do it, absolutely great. If they cannot, then you have, as a seller, or you can have this conversation with your seller. Well, sellers, you have an option now. You can either stay with buyer number 1, or you can do that and you can keep this really fabulous offer as a backup offer, or you can bump out buyer number 1 and now take in buyer number 2. So they do have options, but number 7 and A and B and all the timing in there is surrounding that whole scenario.
Christina, I have 2 quick questions.
Yeah.
Number 1 is this a common practice? And number 2, where would a buyer's agent see this form when representing their buyer?
So, okay, so
You're right.
to answer your first question, I'm not going to say it's, well, it used to be common. Lately, the last couple of years, no, it wasn't, because the market was crazy the last couple of years. Nobody would even consider a property that had someone, a buyer who had to sell their property to buy this one. It was either you had the cash or you just don't even offer. So it's always been a thing to do. It's always been a way to go from one property to another. But I think it's becoming a little bit more common now to see it more and more. It's not uncommon to see it at all. But if you're representing a buyer who is actually a seller that you're representing, so they're a seller first. I think you came in right when we started this. So you're representing a seller, they're selling a property, but they need to move somewhere else. Well, you're going to represent them on that move. Now they're a buyer on that something else. So in that situation, if they haven't closed out that first piece of selling the property, then this is definitely going to come into play when they buy something.
And see, for my case, I already have an escrow number. I'm prepared right there.
Okay, that's good.
So that when they are ready, I already have that to fill in the form, to have that to say, to show proof, we're ready, that we want to sell.
Mhm.
But I just wasn't too sure about the forms too much because I have not used them.
Well, and it's a good idea always to get in and practice. Just even if you're writing out your own address on some of these, and use your spouse or a family member or a friend as the other party pretend fill them out, that's how you learn, that's how you practice it. And then once you fill it out and start reading it out back to yourself, then it starts to make more sense, because like this, it's kind of like an overview, kind of like when you're in a plane and you're looking down, you're like, oh yeah, that's the giant stadium. But if you've never been there, you don't have any idea of what blob of stuff somebody's pointing to on the ground, right? So it's only going to make more sense when you get a little bit more hands-on. Obviously, the crash course hands-on is when you're in it and you need to use it right now. Some of you have had that experience, and a lot of the times that's just how it is. Who really has all the time in the world to go and practice on these? If you don't have time, maybe think of what are the most likely scenario types of buyers you might have. You're going to have buyers that buy houses, condos, mobile homes, or single family residences. Maybe take a look at just those the purchase agreements in of itself, because when you're writing for a client for a mobile home, not only do you use the regular purchase agreement, there's also a mobile home addendum and a mobile home TDS that's involved. So there's some additional forms to look at.
It's not just the regular TDS, you have to do the MHTDS.
Correct. That's when you're representing, on the list.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's good to know it, because when you're representing a buyer, you're going to see that where you might have already just been used to the regular TDS. So now when you see the mobile home TDS, you're going to be like, wait, this looks a little bit different. Why? It's because it's specific to a mobile home. But did I answer your questions, Manuel?
Yes, thank you. Oh, follow-up question. If somebody did fill this out with their seller when they created their listing agreement, would this be in the MLS?
This won't, no, the only thing that will be in the MLS when you're representing the seller and that
I'm
they're
talking about the buyer. Like if I'm a buyer's agent and a listing agent did this with their seller and I go on the MLS, would this information be there?
No, what would be there? No, this won't be on there.
The
Not on the
verbiage,
MLS, not at all.
just verbiage maybe of just
No, because a seller won't have any verbiage on this on the MLS, because they're hoping to just sell their house. They're not even thinking that they're going to sell their house with a buyer that has something to sell. This is only for when you're representing a buyer. What you're talking about, Manuel, is what we were showing a little bit ago, which was the SPRP. That's the one where the seller has to sell something in order to purchase something. That's telling their buyer that they can only sell if they find a replacement property.
Okay.
That's this one.
Got it.
This form here. So now when the seller needs to find something else, they plan on going to something else, this is something you would have as a disclosure when you're representing them as a seller. But in the comments in MLS, this is something where you would see seller must find replacement property, or seller, something to that nature, that word replacement property. If that's in the comments for the private comments in MLS, then that tells you that they are selling, but they need to buy, but it's also going to be contingent on them selling that particular property.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I do when I had a hard time going through an offer, and there's a certain form that I had trouble with, I'll print it out and I'll highlight and make notes.
That's always a really good idea.
Have a book of all my forms that, okay, remember to do this next time, or don't forget this. Just I mean, because I'm old school. And I, maybe people use their phones to do that, but I need to visually can see something like that to remind me.
I mean, do whatever you can to put it more in your face so you remember it. Definitely. Something else I wanted to bring up was, this is new today. I saw it for the first time today. It's the NAR Settlement Survival Guide, Tools and Tips for Success for California. Look at this table of contents. Information for buyers, buyers representation training, sellers resources, EXP Mastermind Library, buyer representation forms, social media shareables, previous social media shareables, California Association of Realtors, updates from CAR, CRMLS, EXP listing forms, FAQs, free car forms, training, etc. This is full of resources and full of links. I'm going to send it to you guys in an email. It is fantastic. I want you guys to take a look at it. It's awesome, awesome, awesome sauce. The other thing is there was something you guys may have, I don't know, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. There was an email that came out. It was from Brokers, Agents, Media. It's kind of like a Housing Wire. It's a news media source entity, and there was a breaking news update with our CEO Leo Pareja about upcoming changes, and he's setting the record straight with a lot of details. What I found out today is that EXP is more restrictive and restrictive or conservative. What's the right word? They are, so NAR, they are a little bit maybe loosey-goosey with trying to do what they can to fit in the form of what they're supposed to be doing. And this is just what I'm hearing. I'm not stating any supreme facts here, just like what I heard today. But EXP is so restrictive and also conservative. We want to make sure our agents are safe and protected as much as possible. So we're doing things that NAR is not saying you have to do, and we are doing things that some of the CRMLS is not even doing. So one of the things we at EXP are doing is, as a company, so you know how EXP has their listing agreement and CAR is coming up with something that, you know, where they have something now available that's adjusted for the listing agreement. We are not sharing commissions at all. If you're representing a seller, you are not sharing a commission, period. You're not, period.
I don't understand that.
So you're going to want to watch this. All of you have to take some time. I think it's 45 minutes.
Okay.
Play it while you're getting ready tomorrow morning. Play it tonight before you go to sleep. I don't know, maybe not in the morning, maybe not in the evening, but just play this video when you get a chance. It's 45 minutes long. I've only gotten through a little bit of it, not all of it, but there is verbiage. And so this is the weird part. So weird, or not everybody agrees on this part, because it's still, you know, everything's going to be changing constantly until this kind of works the kinks out of it with everything. So August 17th is going to come, then the new law and rules go into place. Well, how well is that going to work? Is it going to stick like that for years and years? No, there's going to be changes. Just like when a new car comes out, they got to work out the kinks in the models, and that's why they have the next generation and the next generation. Same thing's going to happen with all the paperwork that we're dealing with, whether it's from CAR or from EXP. There's going to be changes all the time. So you want to be in the know, be up to date with the latest and greatest. Don't just download something and think it's gold and the rule. No, because it'll probably change 2 weeks from now. So you want to be, whenever there's a new draft, a new whatever, download it or use whatever's the latest. So CRMLS is saying we're removing everything that has anything to do with commission out of the MLS. Some MLSs haven't done that. CRMLS said we're doing it today. Some MLSs said, my MLS says we're not doing it until August 13th. Why wait? Why not wait? There's that crux, right? And then commissions, EXP is saying we are not sharing commissions. The whole issue with the whole lawsuit was about sharing commissions. So if we don't share commissions, when we go on a listing presentation, we are only talking to the seller about our commission. We're also talking to the seller about the marketing of potentially exposing their home to other buyer broker agents out there who may want to ask for some type of fee. And if they ask for a fee, I just want you to be aware, seller, that that's going to happen. And it's up to you if you are agreeable to giving that fee or not. Now, in the listing agreement for the new one for CAR, it's my understanding there's a yes no box. If the seller wants to let anybody know, yes, I'm willing to give concession, or no, I'm not willing to give concession. I think that's on the CAR listing form, which I have not really looked at, or if I saw it, it's not the latest one that's coming out. EXP's listing does not have that on there at all. We are just not going to share, but we can represent buyers, and that's what the whole broker agreement is for. So we can get the fee from the buyer, or we can ask it in an offer from the seller. I know it's not clear. It's mud.
And I looked at SkySlip today too, just to see the new forms that came out. And it's funny because it says California, Northern California, and I think it said Southern California. So do we
Yep.
just use California?
Well, because I know your region is California, you're going to only use California. Whereas I think Armida, Ruben, and Armando are, not Armando. Why did I say Armando? Because they're Armida. I have a cousin named Armando. Sorry about that. Ruben, Armida, and Manuel are all Northern California. So they would use the NorCal documents.
Got it.
Yeah.
I did have that situation yesterday. We printed a form, we took it to go get signed. And I was like, wait, is it California? Is it Northern California? Is it Southern California? So now I know, Northern California.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. I checked California only, so I'm assuming it was Central.
Okay, guys, this was wonderful. I think I might upgrade just because I feel like we always get better at the end with more questions. So I might upgrade to get the more past 40 minutes, more minutes.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Christina, for going over that.
Thank you. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions, anyone, and put them in the group chat. I'm happy to answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.